So a US politician just sent Canada instructions on how to become the 51st state. I'm not kidding. Maine State Senator Joseph E. Martin wrote a real letter to a BC MLA, spelling out step by step what he thinks Canada needs to do to join the United States. And let's not forget, Maine is a blue state. When I first saw it, I thought there was no way this is real, but it is real. Big thanks to our viewer Bruce for sending this over my way. Before we tear into that ridiculous letter, here's another photo submitted by Abigail from Scarborough Bluff. Thank you, Abigail, for continuing to send such great shots for the channel. Just a public service announcement. Please double check the channel name when you're clicking on my videos. And make sure it's actually really my channel. More copycat channels are popping up, trying to fool viewers into thinking it's me. Alright, let's get into it. Okay, so Bruce from our community emailed me screenshots of this ridiculous letter. So I dug into it a little bit further and found an X-post from Brendan Day, an MLA from Courtenay Comox, BC. In that post, he called out Senator Martin in an open letter, and many people in the comments said he was being far too nice. I'll get to Mr. Day's response in a moment, but first I want to send you screenshots of the letter that Senator Martin sent. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I'll highlight the key points, and I'll also summarize screenshot by screenshot, but you can pause if you want to read it yourself. Alright, so right off the top, the letter is titled, A Vision for Welcoming Western Canada into the United States. What the actual hell? In the opening paragraph, Senator Joseph E. Martin lays out his position if British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba wanted to join the US, they would have to come in as full American states, not provinces, and not with any kind of dual allegiance. He says this would require consent out of the Canadian people, but also insists there would be no hybrid government, no special carve-outs, and in his words, certainly no Canadian political baggage. He frames this not as an annexation, but as an adoption, claiming it would be about shared values like liberty, sovereignty, and national identity, and welcoming Canadians who choose American over Canadian federalism. That's the tone that's set from the start. Again, pause it if you'd like to read it yourself. Moving on to the next section, it's titled, The Constitution, Terms of the Unions, Not Suggestions. Sounds very welcoming so far, doesn't it? In this part, Senator Martin says that any new states joining the US must do it under the US Constitution. He points out some article which gives US Congress power to admit new states, and uses Texas, Hawaii, and parts of Mexico in the 1840s as examples of voluntary union. But he makes one thing very clear. There would be no special terms for Canadian provinces, no exemptions from US federal law, no keeping Canadian political systems. He says that provinces would have to dismantle their governments, scrap Canadian legal codes, and fully adopt to American law. The US Constitution would have total supremacy. Canadian laws on gun control, speech restrictions, crown lands, or religious education, anything that would conflict with American norms, would be completely wiped out. Sounds like a great deal, doesn't it? Martin says these provinces would then become genuine American states, with their own legislature and executives, but operating entirely under US authority, with no outside oversight. Moving on to the next section, is titled The Bill of Rights, Real Freedom, Not Bureaucratic Permission. In this part, Senator Martin claims that Canadians joining the US would finally experience real freedom under the American Bill of Rights. I'm sorry, that's a load of bullshit. He paints Canadian law as restrictive, suggesting that in Canada, rights are treated like privileges that can be limited by government permission. He says that under this US law, freedoms such as speech, religion, and the right to bear arms would be fully protected, and not subject to what he calls Canadian-style bureaucratic control. Martin makes it clear that provincial laws in Canada that limit these rights would be nullified. He specifically frames this as an upgrade, where Canadians would trade their current system for what he describes as a full permanent freedom guaranteed by the US Constitution. The tone of this is pretty much America knows best, portrayed that Canadian legal framework as inferior, and the US system is the only truth to freedom. How are you guys liking this letter so far? Let me know in the comments. Moving on to section 4. It's titled Sovereignty and Identity, American, not North American. In this part, Senator Martin argues that if Canadian provinces join the US, their identity would no longer be North American in a shared sense, but purely American. He emphasized that this sovereignty would rest entirely on the United States, under US law and political authority, and that any separate Canadian identity would disappear. Martin frames this as a positive, saying it would create unity under one flag, one constitution, and one national identity. In his view, there's no room for dual loyalty, no hybrid citizenship, and no shared culture or political framework between Canada and the US. The tone is very clear. It isn't about partnership. It's about full assimilation into the American sovereignty and the abandonment of a distinct Canadian national identity. The next section is titled Economic and State Sovereignty, Unleashing Industry and Agriculture. Senator Martin claims that joining the US would give Canadian provinces far greater economic freedom. He argues that the provincial industries from manufacturing to natural resources would benefit from fewer federal restrictions and more open market access under US governance. Martin says Canadian regulations are holding back growth. Under US law, he claims industries could expand faster, deal with less red tape, and attract more investments. On agriculture, he says American-style state sovereignty would let provinces turn states make their own rules for farming, land use, and resources, without Ottawa stepping in. He claims this would unleash the potential of Canadian farmland and boost rural economies by cutting what he calls unnecessary federal control. Overall, he describes the US has full economic opportunities that Canadians are missing out on. In his view, becoming United States would remove those barriers and give a major boost to both industry and agriculture. Now I'm going to speed this up a bit because we know the tone of Senator Martin's letter, and it's already pretty clear. The next section, in the state representation, power to the people, not to the crown section, he basically states that any new state would get 2 US senators and congressional seats based on population. He frames this as shifting political power westward and adding liberty-minded voices to push back against the federal overreach, open borders, and centralized control. In the historical precedent and moral foundation section, he says this idea comes from the US history, pointing out past annexations and expansions. He claims it's not about conquering Canada, but also offering Canadians a choice to leave what he calls failing ideologies and join a constitutional republic. He ends by saying Canadians would need to fully embrace American values, being armed and self-governing, and accountable if they want to join. The next section, the welcome mat, constitutional, sincere, and firm. Martin says this isn't about generosity, it's about maturity. And the last section, because thank God I'm tired of reading this, liberty requires borders and commitment. He says that the US isn't looking to expand for size, but to strengthen its tradition and values. If provinces join, they must do so as citizens, not as trading partners, and fully abandon Canada. No split loyalty and no two flags. He frames it as joining the last best hope for Earth, and under God, liberty, and the US Constitution. And he ends it with, the welcome mat is out. Well, here's what I say to your welcome mat. Fuck you. The F-bombs don't fly often here, but I think this one deserves it. What I just read to you was real, not satire and not a parody. It's an actual letter from a US senator. There are people in the States who genuinely think this way and believe their vision of the world is the gold standard for everyone else. For those of you in Maine, seriously, who is this guy? The idea we'll just roll over and embrace the American way without question is beyond delusional. And it's not just about one senator. It's proof that the Republicans are dead serious about the idea of taking over Canada. He actually laid out a step-by-step plan for it, like some kind of annexation how-to guide, complete with what he thinks we get out of it. If this was meant to be a sales pitch, it's easily the worst one I've ever heard. Now switching gears to the reply from Brendan Day, this one I will read out to you. Senator Martin, your recent unsolicited proposal, a vision for welcoming Western Canada into the United States, reads like a recruitment brochure for a political ideology, not a sincere offer to neighbors. Sending it to provincially elected officials of a sovereign nation makes me think you are operating well outside of your lane, sir, so allow me to operate well outside of mine. While I appreciate the sentiment, I feel compelled, as a Canadian, and as an elected member of the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia, to respond clearly and unapologetically on behalf of my constituents. We're Canadian, and we're proud of it. Not confused, not for sale, and not going anywhere. You see, we don't measure freedom by the number of firearms we own, but we do own a few, or how loud we can shout without consequence. We measure it by how we care for one another, how we build strong public institutions that ensure our kids are educated, our seniors are looked after, and no one goes bankrupt because they broke a leg or need chemotherapy. Is our system straining currently? Absolutely. But even under strain, our healthcare outcomes are better, and our costs are lower for majority of our citizens. Do we have work to do? Definitely. But we'll be looking east, not south, for those solutions. We are not Americans with a maple leaf sticker. We are a distinct nation, forged through compromise, built on cooperation, and defined not by revolution, but by evolution. We believe in free enterprise, but not in leaving people behind. We believe in individual rights, but not at the expense of collective responsibility. We honor our veterans, support our neighbors, and yes, we still say sorry, even when it's not our fault. That's not our weakness, that's courtesy. It's Canadian. You write about the supremacy of the US Constitution, and I won't diminish that remarkable document. It has guided countless nations towards democracy. But when you dismiss our own as Canadian political baggage, let me be crystal clear. What you call baggage, we call the backbone of a functioning democracy. It's our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, our parliamentary system, our bilingualism, our multiculturalism, our beliefs that diversity has made us stronger, not something to be flattened out into uniformity. Is it always simple? No. Is it sometimes messy? Absolutely. But is it worth defending? Every damn time. It makes Canada Canadian. Yes, Canada has problems, but we don't fix them by surrendering our identity as you suggest. We fix them by doing what Canadians have always done, rolling up our sleeves, listening to each other, and finding common ground. We may move slowly, but we move together. I have worked with many Americans, spent countless days in industrial and energy facilities across your great nation, and I hold deep respect for your people and your country. But this letter, framed as an invitation, lands more so as a manifesto of arrogance. The idea that the Western Canada must abandon Canadian legal codes, discard Canadian political loyalty, and salute your flag, not ours, is not unity. It's erasure. You say you want us free, armed, self-governing, and accountable. We already are. We just don't define those words through the same lens. Freedom means your health card works better than your credit card. Armed means not only our amazing Canadian Armed Forces and responsible gun ownership, but a population educated and armed to read between the lines and think critically about the future. Accountability means a leader who answers to Parliament, not the news cable pundits. Self-governance means working with Indigenous people, not stepping over them. Our vision may overlap with yours in parts, but it differs where it matters the most. We believe rising tide should raise all ships, not just mega yachts. That capitalism works best when it remembers who it's working for. That the strength in the nation isn't measured by the number of military bases, but how it treats the most vulnerable. We are proud of our roots, but we're not stuck in them. We believe in our own potential, but we don't need to become something else to realize it. We already have what we need to succeed. And while we remain committed to a strong, respectful relationship with our American neighbor, let there be no confusion. This country isn't for sale, and is not up for adoption. Senator Martin, I respect the boldness that it takes to write an unsolicited pitch to dismantle a nation to Canada's provincial legislator. But let me be equally bold in return. Your letter is a perfect example of why many Canadians find so deeply troubling about the American worldview. Assuming that it works for you must be the solution for everybody else. We know who we are. We know what we have. We see the chaos, division, and deep inequalities that plague your system, and we've chosen a different path. Not because we're blind in our flaws, but because we believe in fixing them our way. So while I appreciate your offer, we will pass, sir, proudly, firmly, and with both feet planted in Canadian soil, for now and ever. If you manage to make it to Vancouver Island, please give me a call and I would be happy to show you exactly what we have, why we have it, and why we will never give it up. All the best in the hard work you have ahead of yourselves down there, and I'm sorry for the strong language. Brendan Day, MLA. Brendan was kind enough to include Mr. Martin's email at the bottom of his X post. So if you want to let him know exactly what you think of his bullshit letter, here it is. His email is joseph.martin@legislature.maine.gov. I'll leave it on the screen so you can write it down. Brendan's reply was professional and very Canadian. If I were writing back, though especially after editing this video, I admit my tone would be a lot rougher. But the beauty of this, Canadians and even our allies abroad can tell Mr. Martin exactly what they think of his offer. I'm shocked that this hasn't made bigger headlines. There's only a handful of articles on it, yet it's something that should outrage almost every Canadian. So let's be clear, his offer is rejected, it's insulting, and it's just another reason why to keep the boycott going. If you found this video helpful, hit the like and subscribe, and share it so more people can see it. And if you're still here and you want to see more of my videos, check out the ones that are showing up on your screen now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.